Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥.
Hello and welcome to ForumIAS. This is 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢 here. The first article is about All India Caste Census. Why such a demand is arising? This particular article is very important for sociology optional students and PSIR optional students. Otherwise, this article is important from GS1 and GS2 perspective in the mains examination. What is the context of this article? The recently released data of the Bihar caste census. As a result of this, there has been a widespread demand to conduct all India caste census, and because of that, the author is saying that there will be a return of Mandal versus Mandir politics, which happened in the 1990s. In the 1990s, what happened was the Mandalization of the politic happened. Mandalization, which means the quota system was introduced during the early 1990s as a result of the Mandal Commission report. At the same time, there was Mandir politics going on related to temple demolition construction in the northern part of India. So these two things were parallelly going on in the early 1990s. Now, the author is saying that because of this caste census, we can see that at this era, we are at the juncture of Mandir versus Mandal politics version 2.0. What is the Mandir 2.0 politics? So this is defined by political scientists Pradeep Chibbar and Rahul Verma. But these names are important only for optional students. What we need to understand is the current dispensation under Prime Minister Modi can be related to this type of politics, because the main support base of the current dispensation is the middle class. And how the middle class emerged after the liberalization LPG reforms which happened in the early 1990s. The liberalization happened, and as a result incomes improved and the expansion of middle class took place. So if middle class is the supporter base for the government, their policies will also have middle class values in them. That is, state intervention is there. Material consumption oriented policies are there. Ethno-political pride. All these things are features of the politics of the current dispensation. Policies are different from politics. Politics is the ideology. Policies are the laws, the acts, the policies, regulations that are brought about by the current dispensation or any other government for that matter. So the current government's politics are hinged upon these values, that is state intervention, regulation, oversight, etc. Material consumption, there is a consumption oriented economy, and ethno-political pride, and that can be substantiated by the Hindu nationalist mobilization. So what happened was the anxiety of middle classes, their anxiety, their insecurities and their aspirations led to the crystallization of Hindu nationalist mobilization, and that can be related to political pride, that is the ethno-political pride. So Mandir 2.0 politics had these values, that is intervention of the state 1, 2 is material consumption, and third factor is ethno-political pride. Now coming to Mandal 2.0, so it is hinged upon the lower middle class, which are the precariat. The precariat are those class of people whose incomes are precarious. So they are wedged between the poor and the middle class. So middle class is the base for the current ruling. Then there is poor. Everybody caters to the poor. There is another class which is the precariat, which is situated between the middle class and the poor. This portion is the precariat. And they want to become middle class. They have aspirations to become middle class. So why do they want to become middle class? Middle class itself is a economic marker and is a social status symbol. Compared to their current status, being a middle class is a social status symbol. So addressing the aspirations of the lower middle class is the Mandal 2.0 politics. And there has been a stagnant trend of upward mobility. As we already saw, the precariat, they want to become middle class. They want to ascend in their economic level. But there have been a stagnant trend of upward mobility. Because this lower middle class, they rely more on informal economy. And in informal economy, there are no protections. There is no social security. There is no sick leaves. There is no earned leaves, right? If they work, they will get salary. So they have very little security, and this informal economy cannot provide that much of economic empowerment to them. So for a long time, the precariat, they have been stagnant in their effort to ascend in social sense. They are not able to become middle class. And nearly 1/2 of the country is the precariat. Half of the population is composed of lower middle class. So, and what is the caste composition of this precariat? Lower OBCs. Among OBCs, some are very much equipped. They took advantage of the system. They took benefits of reservation and they were able to improve their social privilege. But there are some OBCs which are the lower OBCs. They are not called lower OBCs because of their inferior social position, but because of their inferior economic position. So they are not as empowered as the other OBCs who were able to take advantage of the affirmative action of the state. Lower OBCs, Dalits and Muslims, they form the precariat. So this particular Mandal 2.0's base will be a ethnic block. Like we saw in the Mandal 2.0, the basic idea of religion-based nationalism was there. But here it is not idea-oriented because these people, they don't have the symbolic capital. What is symbolic capital? For GS students, it is not very much required in depth. So, the ability to shape the perception of social reality, to put forward a narrative, that is the symbolic capital. Because of the class position, which is very precarious for this lower middle class, they don't have the symbolic capital. They can't dictate the narrative. So, they are mobilizing on the basis of caste identities, which is a shared experience, and they are making use of ethno identity rather than an idea. Okay, so in South India there has been caste politics, but it has made a substantive dent. There has been empowerment of the OBCs, of the SCs and STs, but a similar level of empowerment did not happen in the northern India, because in northern India it was more based on short-term electoral coalitions. during the other times, the interests of the OBCs, the oppressed classes, were not advanced and they were seen only as a vote bank. So, even the acquisition of other resources, like in terms of social capital, in terms of education, in terms of social mobility, was not possible in the North India among the OBCs because they were more focused, they were more used as a vote bank. That is why one of the political leaders of North India said that acquisition of political capital is important. Once you have the political capital, you will obtain other forms of capital, economic capital, education, social capital, etc. So, this is Mandal 2.0. In short, what is Mandal 2.0? It is the mobilization of lower middle class who are chiefly composed of lower OBCs, Dalits and Muslims who have a shared ethnic identity and who are not able to create a ideological narrative. That is Mandal 2.0. So there is a pan-India consensus for a all-India caste census. So this shows that there is a possibility of progressive politics of caste, and we can take a leaf from the political strategy of Roosevelt. After the Great Depression, which was a recession that happened in the US in the 1929, 30s, etc. During that time, in order to revive the US economy, the then President Roosevelt, what he did was, he was able to devise a political strategy to build a cross-ethnic coalition of working class people. So, there is a cross-ethnic coalition among the white people, the recent immigrants of Irish descent, Italian descent, East European descent, and together with this cross-ethnic coalition, there were immense political as well as economic development, and these classes, they were able to uplift themselves economically, and America's economy also improved. They came out of the Great Depression. It formed the basis of American capitalism. So this strategy, it shows that ethnic as well as class politics can work complementary to each other, because in this example, they were of working class and they were from different ethnicities. So mingling of all these factors, it worked beautifully. So similarly, the same strategy, that is the Mandal 2.0, can work. So these ethnicities, the caste, they are purposive agent. They have a purpose. They can dictate and forge their own path. They are not just reacting to external stimulus. That is, externally some law is coming, some events are happening. Only that doesn't dictate what is the action, what is the reaction of a caste group. But they are self-determinate enough to know what they want. For example, Jats in Haryana, Marathas in Maharashtra, they have grown beyond asking for a quota towards a larger OBC platform. This shows consolidation of Mandal 2.0 politics, which will be facilitated through the All India Caste Census. But what is the takeaway from this article? There is a lower middle class consolidation happening. From the upper middle class, the focus of politics is shifting to lower middle class, and this lower middle class comprises of lower OBCs, SCs and Muslims, and they are uniting on the basis of their shared experiences and they want to attain social mobility. That is the summary of this article. Coming to the second article, it talks about West Asian geostrategic architecture within the context of Tufan al-Aqsa. So, this Tufan al-Aqsa, which is the operation that is launched by Hamas, it has resemblance to the Yom Kippur War, which took place 50 years ago. So, if you have studied in static portion, there was a Yom Kippur War which happened in the 1972 year on the eve of the festival of Yom Kippur. So, the current attack of the Hamas on Israel, it has resemblances to the Yom Kippur War. And after this Yom Kippur War, there was a tectonic shift in the politics. That means a drastic shift in the politics involving Israel, in which Israel adopted a policy of land for peace. During the Yom Kippur War, what happened was, so this region of Egypt, so this region, it is not fully in the map, so which is called as the Sinai Peninsula. Came under the control of Israel. And during the Camp David Accords, what happened was Israel agreed to give away land for recognition. So, Egypt became the first Arab state to recognize Israel in exchange of the land they lost during the Yom Kippur War. So, similarly, the current conflict, as it has parallels to the Yom Kippur War, maybe it will create a tectonic shift in the current geostrategic architecture of West Asia. How that will happen, we will see in the article. So, actually, this attack on Israel took place as a result of abject intelligence failure. And there is a huge reliance on high-tech missile defense and artificial intelligence. So, relying overly on technological aspects and going slack on the ground intelligence is what led to Israel getting into this war. So, that is why the author is saying there is a abject intelligence failure. So, the author is considering that this conflict could protract. It can go for a long time, but it would remain geographically confined, as Hamas and Islamic Jihad, which are the terrorist groups in the Gaza Strip, they have very few all-weather friends, which means they have very few supporters who can support through anything and everything that might happen in the future. So, in the Israel and occupied territories map, so if you see here, the yellow portion is Israel, and this is the Gaza Strip, which is obviously under the control of Hamas and another group, that is Islamic Jihad. This is the West Bank region. So, this West Bank region is administered by PA, that is the Palestinian Authority. So, the Palestinian Authority, they are controlling this region, but within the ambit of overall Israeli government. So, they are under Israeli government, they are having a interim arrangement, and that is why Palestinian Authority is able to control a part of West Bank. Still, they don't have the supremacy in the West Bank. Israel still has supremacy in the West Bank. Palestinian Authority is just sharing power, so to say, with Israel in the West Bank. So, the Gaza Strip, which is ruled by Hamas, they obviously they don't recognize Israel. Coming back, so the Palestinian Authority, what would be their reaction to this conflict? So, they are split between the West Bank. So, the Palestinian Authority is run by Al-Fatah with Israeli occupation authorities. So, it is having an arrangement with Israel. An ultimate power rests with Israel in the West Bank. Gaza, which is administered by Hamas, Hamas doesn't recognize Israel. So, what has been happening in the past, in the last few years, there has been Israeli settlers, Israeli settlements in the West Bank. So, there were regions in the West Bank where Israel tried to settle Israeli people. So, those were called as the Israeli settlements. So, these settlements, the Al-Fatah, that is the Palestinian Authority, they were not able to stop any Israeli settlements in the West Bank. So, the Palestinian Authority, obviously they will praise the resistance, but they don't have much teeth. They don't have that much of reach to be of much help to the Hamas, which is launching these attacks on Israel. So, they will express indignation to Israeli war crimes, but this will be merely lip service because they don't have anything, any resources at their disposal to actually support Hamas. They can just provide lip service. Another Arab neighbor is Egypt. So, Egypt currently has a pro-West military regime and they are not having much opinion. They are not having a very cordial relation with the Gazan rulers, which is the Hamas. So, this Hamas was an ally of the Muslim Brotherhood. So, the Muslim Brotherhood was an offspring of the Arab Spring, which took place in 2010. So, after the Arab Spring, the Muslim Brotherhood, they ruled Egypt till 2013. Then, the military of Egypt, they overthrew this Muslim Brotherhood and they are now in power. So, their predecessor Muslim Brotherhood also had terror links, which is obvious by their connection with Hamas. So, the Egyptian pro-military government, pro-West government might not be of any help to the Hamas because they are pro-West, and we all know that in this conflict, US is siding with Israel. The Gulf monarchies like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, all of those monarchies, they strongly disapprove of Hamas and they call Hamas as a political Islamic outfit. But exception is Qatar. Qatar generally provides support to Gaza Strip. They provide humanitarian assistance to the citizens in Gaza, but they can't overstep their bounds because ultimately they are also under the control of the West. They don't want to antagonize the West. Then we come to Turkey. We all know that Turkey is in a very bad economic situation. They have a bruised economy. So, Turkey is a Sunni power, but they have been a supporter of Hamas. But they also can't provide on the ground support because of their bruised economy. And we have the Shia Iran, which has been a mentor of the Sunni outfits, that is the Islamic Jihad, which is an outfit operating in Gaza Strip, and the Hamas. So, they were also helping, but Iran also has a limited reach. A long war between Hamas and Israel is thus unlikely because Israel is far more technically advanced and it has far more resources than the Hamas. And the all-weather friends of Hamas are also very few. And we know that the US ships are coming to the banks of Mediterranean Sea to support Israel. In this context, Hamas surviving this conflict, conducting a protracted war would not be a possibility. What would be the implications of this conflict? So, this would delay the rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Israel, because for Saudi Arabia and Israel to normalize their relations, Saudi Arabia has been constantly asking Israel to grant some concessions to the Palestinians. But owing to this particular attack, Israel would not be in a position to grant such concessions. So, the consignment, the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Israel might get delayed. India is not directly affected by Tufan al-Aqsa, but if there is a protracted conflict, which means a long drawn out conflict, then India might suffer indirectly because of the oil price rise, the impact on our diaspora. There is very dim prospect for India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. So this economic corridor has been planned to connect India, Middle East and Europe ultimately. That corridor would be affected if there is a conflict in West Asia. And the I2U2. I2U2 is a grouping that is composed of India, Israel, UAE and the US. So, these would be negative aspects of this conflict if it goes as a long drawn conflict. But there is one silver lining, that India will be a fast growing economy which has a stable political situation and they are insulated from the turmoil. So, India might receive a lot of investments. Okay. So, what is the conclusion of this article? According to the facts of the article, the current conflict between Hamas and Israel might not last longer because Hamas doesn't have enough wherewithal to fight Israel for a long period of time. At the same time, we saw what might be the consequences for India. Though India would be largely isolated from the conflict, there are some indirect consequences and there is a small silver lining for India. So, that's it for this second article. So, the third article talks about the Sikkim flood. It talks about the Sikkim flood. What was the reason for the Sikkim flood? It was glacier lake outburst. What is the glacier lake outburst flood? So what happens is, due to climate change, there is retreat of glaciers. Due to this reason, lakes are formed at the foot of the glaciers. So say for example, this is the glacier. At the foot of it, lakes are formed, and to an extent the lakes are contained due to the rock, the debris, the sediment that are carried by the glacier. So these debris, they form as a border for this lake. Once there is a trigger of this moraine, this border, right, it is called as moraine. Once there is a trigger, this border breaks and the lake overflows. So what triggered the outburst of this glacial lake in Sikkim in the first place? So the NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, it calls this event as a glacial lake outburst flood caused by excess rainfall. So there is no meteorological information that supports the happening of such an excess rainfall, but at such a height, there is no way to monitor rainfall. We must have some monitors, right? Rain gauges, sensors, etc. But at such a height, we don't have that facility. So probably extreme rainfall would have triggered the collapse of this glacial lake. Also, there were earthquakes which had the epicenter at Nepal, which took place on October 3rd, 2023. And this earthquake might have triggered the stability of this glacier and consequently the lake, and as a result the lake might have overflowed. So there are many theories, but they haven't yet crystallized. Okay, so what damage did this cause? The destruction of the Chungtang Dam. So this is a part of a Teesta project for hydropower. So this Chungtang Dam, it supplies water to the Teesta project. So it is not a storage dam, it directs water to power the Teesta 3 hydropower project. Also, in the Teesta 5 power station, flood water overtopped the dam. So as a result, the hydropower project of Teesta, it comprises of many dams. So this project was compromised. Currently, no power generation is taking place in this project. Can we say that such an events can occur in the future? It might occur in the future because of rising temperatures. Rising temperature is a resultant of climate change. We all know, right? And because of rising temperature, there might be a wetter future. And this will lead to climate change related extreme events. Not only climate change, the fragile Himalayan ecosystem is also disturbed by hydropower and other dams. So it is a combination of man-made factors which disrupt the fragility of Himalayan region and also climate change related events. So once a glacial lake is found, we don't know what will trigger the outburst. So the best bet we have is we should prevent such a retreat of glaciers. We should prevent or slow down the melting of glaciers. So what can be a way forward? The way forward is implementing early warning systems, but it requires coordination from many sectors. So if there is sharing of satellite images, then this early warning system is possible, because this glacial lake outburst flood, it is caused mainly due to overflowing of the lakes, the glacial lakes. Earthquake cannot be detected as easily, but we can monitor the water level in these lakes. We can be prepared if there is a probability of flooding occurring. Next is the Digital India Act. This act is replacing the Information Technology Act, that is the IT Act. So the India's internet user base, it has expanded from mere 5.5 million to 850 million. So the nature of problems associated with internet has also changed, because there are a lot of intermediaries on the internet, right from Google to Facebook to Instagram to Twitter, which is now called X. So there are a lot of intermediaries on the internet, and there are new forms of harm such as cyber stalking, trolling, doxing. Doxing means revealing an identity. So these are all the new forms of harm that are arising by using internet as a tool. Now the situation has changed, the number of users have changed, and also the types of harms have changed. And this IT Act, it hasn't kept pace with it. So we need a new act, which is the Digital India Act. So this act places strong emphasis on online safety and trust. Secondly, it acknowledges the growing importance of technologies such as artificial intelligence and blockchain, but there has to be responsible utilization of such technologies. So technology development must be there, but at the same time it should be ethically utilized. There should be responsible utilization. That is why they are saying that the deployment is in line with ethical and legal principles. So this promotes ethical AI practices, and it enforces mechanisms of accountability in the use of these technology. Next, it strikes a balance between accessibility and regulations to maintain order. Internet should reach each and everyone. Today it is a part and parcel of life. Of course we have to bridge our digital divide, but at the same time there has to be necessary regulations to protect users. And this act also maintains stringent KYC requirements. Like for banks, we have the KYC requirements, right? In case of wearable devices, be it wearable watch, wearable specs, etc., for that KYC is required. And this act also contemplates a review of safe harbor principle. What is this safe harbor principle? If I as a user, I post something on Instagram, but it is a harmful content, Instagram is not responsible. Only I am responsible. So this act is trying to review that principle, which aims to give some sort of accountability to the intermediaries also. If Instagram is not trying to moderate its content, it is on Instagram also to an extent. That is what this act is trying to say, but those provisions are in pipeline, they are under discussion. So what are the challenges with respect to this act? So if there are stricter regulations, it will stifle entrepreneurial initiatives. So this is a new technology, blockchain, distributed ledger, artificial intelligence, they are all new technologies. So if there are very much stricter regulations, it will stifle innovation. If there are stricter regulations, the foreign investments will also be less. And if we are reviewing the safe harbor principle, what will happen? The intermediaries like Instagram, X and all, they will censor the people who are using those platforms, and this impinges on freedom of expression. In order to protect themselves, they can curb the freedom of expression of the users of that platform. So another challenge that can be contemplated is implementing this act requires enormous resources, expertise, infrastructure, but we do not have such an infrastructure. We need more manpower, we need more technology to implement the Digital India Act. The final article is about the dholes. It is a wild dog species. Picture of it is given here. So this article says that those, they are predators, they hunt hares, they hunt deers, etc. So tigers are also predators. What this article is saying is, being predators, the dholes and tigers, they don't compete with each other, they have some sort of cooperation, they have a mechanism of coexistence with each other. So this dhole, it is an endangered species. In the IUCN classification, dholes are endangered and they are at a risk of extinction. Generally, like dogs, they are wild dogs. Dholes are wild dogs. So they operate in packs of 5 or 10. And in early 2004, there might be even a bigger pack having even 30 members. But today, due to factors such as habitat loss, that is, the forest area is shrinking, declining prey availability, prey population is declining, persecution, disease, and interspecies competition, these have been threat to the existence of dholes. But the new research is saying that there is a mechanism of coexistence between dholes and tigers. So whenever we are doing tiger conservation, we can also factor in dholes, because we have a project tiger, so we can integrate the conservation. So this finding, it opens doors for new ways of conservation, new ways of policies related to conservation. That's it for discussion. We will see some PYQs. In India, extended producer responsibility is a part of which? Extended producer responsibility means I am producing something and I am selling it. There are users. Say you are the user. You are buying my product and you are using that product. But at the end of the life cycle of that product, the product is waste and you will throw it to garbage. Instead, if I as a manufacturer, I myself collect that product back, then I can responsibly dispose it off so that it doesn't create other environmental consequences. That is extended producer responsibility, and it is part of e-waste management rules, which is option C. Option C given here. Next question. In the context of any country, what is social capital? Today we saw an article, right? It was about symbolic capital. It was about social capital, political capital. What is that social capital? Social capital is the level of mutual trust and harmony in the society. So the answer for this particular question is D. So that's it for today's discussion. Follow us on all these social media platforms. Thank you.